One Year Chronological Reading Insights video. Today we're going to be in Job chapter 38 through Job chapter 40 verse 5. And now we get to the best part, the part where the Lord is speaking right to Job here. We've got a long extended and man, it's really great for our souls, great for us to worship. There'd be no other God that I'd want to worship except a God like this who can basically call Job onto the carpet here. Allah who has warmed him up, and Allah who has him now ready before the throne of God. Now, Job has been wanting this meeting with God, this face-to-face meeting. Now he has it. And Job is much more silent than he ever was with his friends, okay? Job doesn't say much. Of course he can't when the Holy One. Really, all that Job can say in response is repentance, knowing and seeing what's right. I mean, you get before a holy God. We're not as bold. And so Job has, this whole time Job has been questioning God. Well, now it's God's turn to question Job. And Job really didn't have much to say, but we'll get to that here in just a little bit at chapter 40. Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, "Who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge?" By the way, this is poetry, so it's still hard to interpret. You get to chapter 42, we're more in prose, but poetry's hard. But we at least see this, where the Lord says, Job, you're without knowledge. Who are you to consult me on what my wisdom is? Dress for action like a man. Man up. I will question you, and you make it known to me. Okay, Job, you want to question me? I'm going to question you first. Where were you, Job, when I laid the foundation of the earth? So the Lord just lays into him, lets him know. Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth, Job? Tell me if you have understanding. So the Lord's going to be pointing out so many ways of which the Lord controls, creates, holds things together. And he's letting Job know, you do none of those things, Job. And because you do none of those things and you are incapable of doing any of those things, where do you ever think that you can question my sovereignty, question the wisdom of what I'm trying to do, the wisdom of how I hold back evil and use evil, how I use, even though he doesn't say it directly here, but how Satan is used. Actually, I could say he does when we get to Leviathan, but that's later. I mean, he's like, Job, you have no right to question me here. Who determines its measurements? Surely you know. Now what's great is the Lord keeps asking Job question after question after rhetorical question. Why would God do that? Because God loves, to rhetorical questions. It's really about he's trying to pull Job to see how small and puny he is, how wonderful and magnificent God is, and that Job can do nothing but hit his knees and throw up his hands and declare that God is God and he is not, and God is right in whatever he does and whatever he pleases. That's where God... So he's showing him all that God does that Job doesn't. Verse 6, on what were its bases sunk, or who laid its cornerstone? Job, were you there? When the morning stars sang together and all the sons of glory shouted for joy. Job, were you there? Did you see all this? You seem to want to consult me. Or who shut in the sea with doors when it burst out from the womb? So he tells Job, were you there at creation? Are you there controlling how far evil goes? Verse 8, or who shut in the sea with doors when it burst out from the womb? When I made clouds its garment and thick darkness its swaddling band, and prescribed limits for it and set bars and doors, and said, thus far shall you come and no further. And here shall your proud waves be stayed. Now he talks about how God controls how far the seas go, but we also are dealing with the poetry of this and the evilness that Job is contemplating. And I think we also see in this that God says, I put a limit on evil. Like, Job, I'm the one that does all this, not you. You have no ability to do any of this. You're incapable. Have you commanded the morning since your days began, Job, and caused the dawn to know its place, that it might take hold of the skirts of the earth and the wicked be shaken out of it? Like, I'm even controlling the wicked, just so you understand. And I'm controlling the morning. I'm controlling the dawn. It is changed like clay under the seal, and its features stand out like the garment. Like, I actually see both morning and dawn. You can only see one at a time. I can see both. I'm the one that's making this whole entire thing happen. Nothing is unseen to me. For the wicked, their light is withheld, and their uplifted arm is broken. He says, like, I don't let the wicked get away. Their light is withheld and their uplifted arm is broken. I break up their violent arms that want to raise fists. Have you entered into the springs of the sea or walked in the recesses of the deep? Now God gets into this idea of death. He's like, have you seen into death? Have you seen into hell? He describes it through talking about the sea. Have the gates of death been revealed to you, or have you seen the gates of deep darkness? Have you seen the gates of hell? Have you comprehended the expanse of the earth? Declare it if you know all this. Job, you don't know anything. You haven't created. You haven't held back evil. You haven't controlled it. You haven't seen into death. You haven't seen into hell. Where is the way to the dwelling of light? And where is the place of darkness? That you may take it to its territory and that you may discern the path to its home. He just says, like, Job, like you can't see light and darkness at the same time. I see it both. Like, you don't guide it, day and night. You don't take it to its territory. I do. Who are you to question me, Job? You know, for you were born then, and the number of your days is great. Have you entered the storehouses of snow, and have you seen the storehouses of the hail? Like, do you know anything about storms? Do you have any control over that? Which I have reserved for the time of trouble, for the day of battle and war, which also, poetically, these, like, snow and hail can also be, poetically descriptive of war. He's like, I'm over war as well. Are you over war? Are you the one who has reserved battle in times for this? What is the way to the place where the light is disturbed, or where the east wind is scattered upon the earth? Who has cleft a channel? So God says, I'm over the rain. I'm over benevolent rain. Now, we just saw kind of non-benevolent weather, and then it relates to war. But now he talks about benevolent weather, benevolent rain, how it results in flourishing of the desert. God says, I'm the one who's over that. I'm the one who's been doing that. God's building off of what Elihu had already told him, the exact power and sovereignty of God over all creation, tells you, Job, that your way is not wiser than mine. And by the way, just for us as well, if we don't believe that God is sovereign, then the more we believe he is sovereign, the more we're okay. And some of this you can see in creation. I mean, creation speaks of God as well as his special revelation in the scriptures, but also creation. This is what all people know, that there is a God and they're accountable to him. Creation clearly declares it. The power of God over creation, how he sustains and controls it, shows that he has a superior wisdom. A person is not being intellectually honest if they say otherwise. Verse 25, he who has cleft a channel for the torrents of the rain and a way for the thunderbolt. He's just talking about like how God directs weather to bring rain on the land where no man is, and on the desert in which there is no man, to satisfy the waste and desolate land, and to make the ground sprout with grass. God says, I'm the one who does that. Don't you think I know what I'm doing in your life? Has the rain a father, or who has begotten the drops of dew? For whose womb did the ice come forth, and who has given birth to the frost of heaven? Job, have you done any of that? Have you been like a mother or father bringing forth weather? The waters become hard like stone, and the face of the deep is frozen. Can you bind the chains of... So now he's been looking at weather. Now he looks at the solar system. Can you bind the chains of Pleiades or loose the cords of Orion? Can you lead forth Mazzaroth, which is basically like a planet in their seasons? Or can you guide the bear with its children? Must be another planet system. Do you know the ordinances of the heavens? Can you establish their rule on the earth? Which in their day, anything that had to do with the heavenlies was... they tried to predict life through astrology. That was a common thing in ancient times. And he's saying, I'm even over all that. Are you over all that? I'm over all that. Can you lift up your voice to the clouds, that a flood of waters may cover you? Can you send forth lightning, that they may go and say to you, here we are? Who has put wisdom in the inward parts and given understanding to the mind? So God says, I'm in control of lightning, weather, even what goes into the mind? Who can number the clouds by wisdom? Or who can tilt the waterskins of the heavens when the dust rains into a mass and clods stick fast together? Can you hunt the prey for... So he's just been going in this whole time talking about like weather and the cosmos. He's saying, Job, you don't have anything to do with that. You don't control that. You didn't start it. You don't regulate it. You don't do anything about that. You have no sovereignty over that. Why do you think your wisdom is above mine? Answer up. Man up, Job, to the accusations you've been making about my character. Verse 38. Now he moves over into kind of the animal kingdom now. Job, obviously, you saw, in the beginning, he has lots of animals, so he's familiar with farm life. Can you hunt? So God now talks about kind of the untamed animals, the wild animals. Like Job knows how to handle farm animals, but not untamed animals. And God says, I'm so powerful, I control the wild animals. Do you control wild animals, Job? I control that. So God's letting him know you can't question me. Can you hunt the prey for the lion, or satisfy the appetite of the young lions when they crouch in their dens or lie in wait in their thicket? Who provides for the raven its prey when its young ones cry to God for help and wander about for lack of food? So he says, Job, I've been the one sustaining the untamed wild animals. I've been the one directing their world and life. Have you been doing that? No, Job. Be ready to answer for yourself, Job. By the way, the Lord hasn't stopped yet, hasn't given Job a chance to answer. But even if he did, Job's not going to have much to say. Not much to say at all. Do you know in the mountains, so God continues to talk about wild animals, his control over what the wild animals do, how they're sustained. Job has no ability and no power over that. And so God's pointing like, I'm the one that keeps that going, not you. Doesn't this show you that my will and wisdom is perfect, and what has happened in your life is according to my perfect and sovereign design? Worship me, Job. Don't complain about me. Don't consult me, Job, on what you think I should be doing, how I should be governing my creation. He says, do you know when the mountain goats give birth? I do. Do you observe the calving of the does? Can you number the months that they fulfill? Do you know how long they're even pregnant? Or do you know the time when they give birth? I know. When they crouch, bring forth their offspring and deliver their young. Their young ones become strong and they grow up in the open. They go out and do not return to them. Do you know anything about that? I do. What about the wild donkey? Who has let the wild donkey go free? Who has loosed the bonds of the swift donkey? To whom I have given the arid plain as his home and the salt land for his dwelling place. Did you give a place for the wild donkey to go? I did. The wild donkey doesn't like the city life. He scorns the tumult of the city. He hears not the shouts of the driver. No one controls him. Have you given him a place to live? I have. He ranges the mountains of his pasture and he searches after every green thing. What about the bull? Verse 9, is the wild ox willing to serve you, Job? Will he spend the night at your manger, Job? Can you bind him in the furrows, a wild bull, with ropes? And will he harrow the valleys after you? Will he domesticate himself for you, Job? Will you depend on him because his strength is great? And will you leave to him your labor? Job, would you trust a wild oxen? Would you let a wild oxen do the labor that you would want a domesticated farm ox to do? Do you have faith in him that he will return your grain and gather it to your threshing floor? Basically says, Job, you'd have no control over a wild ox. And guess what? I do. I control him. I pattern life for him. He does what I say. The wings of the ostrich wave proudly, but they are the pinions and plumage of love. So he's now talking about the wild ostrich. For she leaves her eggs to the earth and lets them be warmed on the ground, forgetting that a foot may crush them and that the wild beast may trample them. She deals cruelly with her young, as if they were not hers, though her labors be in vain, yet she has no fear. Because God has made her forget wisdom and given her no share in the understanding. He just says, like Job, the wild oxen, do you have any design over how she works? No. Like, so the Lord basically says, the wild oxen, I make her dumb enough to forget about her young, that she would protect herself and her vulnerability and just dash off. Like, so she forgets about her young easily because I've made her and designed her that way. But also, I've made her dumb, but I've made her fast. Like, by my good purposes, right? Instead of making her smart and fast, I've made her dumb and fast. When she rouses herself to flee, she laughs at the horse and its rider. So he's like, the wild ostrich, I've designed how she works. I've designed how she's going to sustain herself, not you. Do you give the horse his might? Do you clothe his neck with a mane? The war horse, he says, have you been the one to design the war horse, like the wild war horse who doesn't get scared, who loves to charge into battle? Do you make him leap like the locust? A majestic snort. His majestic snorting is terrifying. He paws in the valley. He exults in his strength. He goes out to meet the weapons. This is a wild war horse. Do you design this kind of horse, Job? Is this you? This kind of horse laughs at fear and is not dismayed. He does not turn back from the sword. Upon him rattled the quiver, the flashing spear, and the javelin. You know, horses, I'm not much of a horse fan. Horses seem to be very skittish. I don't trust them, but not a war horse. With fierceness and rage, he swallows the ground. He cannot stand still at the sound of a trumpet. He hears the trumpet of battle, and he wants to charge. When the trumpet sounds, he says, aha. He smells the battle from afar, the thunder of the captains and the shouting. It is by your understanding. So he just basically is letting Job know, like, Job, you haven't designed the war horse, and you think you can consult me on my ways. You think you can talk to me about how to govern. You didn't do creation. You don't do the wild animals, and yet you think you can consult me about what I've done in your life. What about the wild birds? Is it by your understanding that the hawk soars and spreads his wings towards the south? Is it at your command that the eagle mounts up and makes his nest on high? Did you design where the eagle mounts up? On the rock he dwells and makes his home on the rocky crag and stronghold. Did you design for this to be the place where eagles like to live so they can see their prey? From there he spies out his prey. His eyes behold it from afar. His young ones suck up blood, and there the slain are. There he is. Job, did you design where eagles would love to perch themselves so they could see their prey? Job, did you do anything about the untamed wild animals and how they work? Job, did you do any of this? So, as Elihu has been letting Job know, listen, you have accused the character of God, and he is sovereign and wise, way above you. God is letting him know, Job, you've done nothing. You don't know. Like, you don't know what I know. I have such unlimited power, and I am holding all of creation together, even the untamed wild animals that you have no access to. And of course, the majestic cosmos and weather patterns, of course, Job has no bearing on that. He's letting Job know, like, Job, like, your accusations of me are not righteous. Your suffering is innocence, but what you've said about me in your suffering has not been innocent. Now the Lord gives Job a chance to speak. Now, if we've seen all the other times he's spoken, he's typically had a lot. He's had a lot to say to his friends, less to say to Elihu, but then see what he says to the Lord. And the Lord said to Job, shall a fault finder contend with the Almighty? Ooh, man, what a terrible thing for God to call you a fault finder. But what God was saying is a fault finder with the Almighty. There's people who try to fault find other people. You know, like I heard a Christian one say, I'm a fruit inspector. That's my spiritual gift. I caution for anybody to claim that's their spiritual gift. You mean hypocrisy maybe? That could be your spiritual gift. But God says, you are a fault finder with me. You contend with me. You try to find fault with me. He who argues with God, let him answer it. So he says, Job, okay, I've talked to you a little bit about it. Why don't you answer it? You fault finder, you've been fault finding with me. And Job answered the Lord and said, behold, I am of small account. Praise the Lord. This is Job spiraling. This is Job like, I've got hope for Job now. This is him finding pleasure in God. I am of small account. This is where we want to be. Us, small, and God big. Shall I answer you, he says? Behold, I'm a small account. Shall I answer you? I lay my hand on my mouth. He's like, I'm going to cover my mouth. I'm going to shut my mouth now, Lord. I've spoken once, and I will not answer twice, but I will proceed no further. Like I've already spoken way too much already. I just want to cover my mouth. I just want to shut up and just listen to you, Lord. Best thing he ever did. So that concludes January 30th reading, and this concludes our video. And as we close this out, I just want to brought to where what helps Job to start like finding the Lord in the midst of his innocent suffering is that he sees God as big and us as small. We are puny. He looks at the Elihu and God point out to him God's sovereign power over all, his direction over all, his design over all, what you can't even see in the solar system. With wild animals, God is controlling and doing all that. And if God does all that, why would we ever think that what he has decided to happen in our life, we can consult him like he's not doing right? We are small, he is big. Okay, this completes the January 30th 1 year chronological reading insights video, and we will see you for the very end of Job tomorrow.